throughout the years are on topics that are of interest, you know, to you folks. And so we're happy to have G. Wagenius, who's our state representative from 63B, and we're expecting Senator Patricia Torres Ray here momentarily. So I'd just like to introduce Jean and have her say a few words. And but before she does, why don't we just go on and introduce ourselves and talk about what precinct we're from? Or if you have a particular issue that you wanted to hear about, you can mention that too. And we'll mark them down and make sure they get covered. Jeff, you want to start off?
I'm Jeff Wright. I'm Richfield, maybe precinct 2 wards. I don't know. 6. I'm in Richfield.
It's part of the new reconfigured District 63. And you're from right around Lake Nokomis, Lake Hiawatha.
Gordon Everson, my wife Marty. We meet at Roosevelt High School. I have no idea what the precinct number is.
Well, welcome. You're part of our district. That's important.
My name is legislature. I live in St. Paul and I'm a member of the St. Paul DFL. Welcome.
Catherine Malata, I'm also a visitor from St. Paul, 64B.
My name is Mike Kramer. I live right around here. I'm anxious to hear about early voting. I need to see that get passed this year.
And I'm Barbara Batiste, and what precinct are we to? I live on your block.
The great 11-4.
And I'm interested in the exchange and the fact that it's such the abortion prohibition on it. Hoping that will come off
Sorry.
Bob Brooks, I'm from Bloomington. I think it's 41, I'm not sure. I'm interested in the condition of intractability. How we can't seem to come to any compromise. So what's going on with consensus building that's new and effective?
Okay.
Chad, me and my wife just moved into Richfield about a month ago, so I'm just here to listen today.
Great.
Amelia?
Are there any issues of that strike you as being important or pressing?
The take on the tax plan.
My name is Harold Wise. I live right over here by the VA hospital. And I'd just like to know what you feel is important for us to know too.
Good.
I'm Jill Monterey. This is my husband John and our son Marcel. And we live over in Hiawatha neighborhoods. I'm just interested in kind of what's going on behind the scenes, I guess. What's hot right now, what you're struggling with, what we help with.
I'm John Irwin. I live up in the Sewer neighborhood in South Minneapolis. And my day job is I'm a work professor at the University of Minnesota, but I'm also on a citywide commission on the Minneapolis Park Board, and I'm president of that board.
And I'm Hal Huggins. I have finally learned that I live in the 11th ward, the 4th precinct now. I finally learned that. 2 blocks from you.
I'm Ann Jones. I know I'm Ward 12, but I'm over by the river. And I think it's 63. That's as close as I can get. The 2 issues I'm watching are health insurance exchange bills that are progressing through, wanting progressive, principles applied to that, and then the reducing gun violence. Really very concerned that Minnesota take a stand on reducing gun violence. Now's our chance. And I already apologize to Jean. I have to sneak out a little early because I got a family thing, but I wanted to come. So I apologize to you, Patricia.
I'm Sam Devine, and I think last time I figured out I'm in 63. Just as confused as anyone else about which precinct, but here just to get
63 is close enough.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah.
Helen Ferguson, 12-9. I don't have big issues with separate transportation, bikes, buses, stuff like that.
I'm Eric Ferguson. I'm the chair of Senate District 63, and for tonight, I'm your cameraman.
I'm Wayne Shaw from 60 Posted 11.
Well, welcome to you all, really, and I think this will be informative. We're going to have time for a question and answer, or if you have questions, if you don't want to forget, we do have mics because some of you appear to be a little more soft-spoken than others. So we do have mics that are hooked up and ready to go. But other than that, let's greet our state senator, Patricia Torres Ray, and our state representative, Gene Wagenius, with that rock.
We can try this without mics, but if it doesn't work, we will pick them up. So you all just let us know about that. So I think maybe we can just give you a big picture overview of what is going on at the legislature right now, and then we can hone in on some of the specific issues. So with that, let me just talk about the Senate and the House right now are doing most, not all, but most of our work in committee. And what is interesting about that in general is the press doesn't cover our committee work, yet that's where the work is done. They cover us when we get to the floor, but by the time a bill reaches the floor, it's pretty much destined to pass, maybe amended, but destined to pass. So a lot of the things that are happening now are ideas that are getting sifted through, and any policy idea has to meet a deadline of this coming Friday in at least one committee, one house, and then a week from this coming Friday in both houses, or it will not be considered for this year. It could come up as an amendment on the House floor, but that is a more difficult procedure to get a bill passed.
I'm sorry, Gene, could you be just a bit louder? I'm not sure you're being picked up on camera.
Okay, a bit louder, all right. So that's what we are doing now in the main. I would say that that's kind of where we are. But the second big thing is we just got the February forecast. And at the end of February, and that is what tells us the dollar amount we have for the budget for the next 2 years. And that tells us a couple of things that are important for you to know. We have a shortfall coming in the general budget of $627 million. So we either have to cut or raise revenue to meet that.
Raise revenue?
Raise taxes, yes.
Why is that?
Well, it's because we are going to have this not enough money in the pot to pay for everything that we are committed to paying for at this time, or we have been paying for. The one other thing is we owe the schools $801 million.
No way.
Yes, we do. So that was borrowing from last year, for the last 2 years, and trying to pay off this borrowing. So there's one other thing I think you need to know about the forecast. It is done based on some national work from folks called Global Insight, and they have a good track record. They can kind of hone in and say, this is where the economy is going. The economy could go slower. So they're basing their projections on an assumption that something will happen in the 60% probability. So that's where they give us the numbers. Underneath that, there's one assumption that they made that I think is important for us to understand. And one of the assumptions, of course, has to do with what's going on at the federal level. The sequestration, they are assuming, will end in June. My guess is that that's not going to happen. That's the probability on the downside. But if it doesn't, if the sequestration continues, then they see that as a 1/10 of a 1% reduction in the growth of the economy. And that's important to understand because our economy grows in tandem with the federal economy. We are not an island. We're doing better now, but we are not an island. So the one important thing about the sequestration, though, where we are an island, is that among the states, we are 49th in states that get federal procurement dollars. That's a whew, because that's not going to affect us nearly as much as some of the southern states, for example, that have big defense contractors. We just don't have it. So that being 49th means we will lose some jobs with sequestration, but not nearly to the extent of most states. So that's kind of the big picture to understand for finances, because now we are going to base our budget on what I have just told you. What hasn't happened yet is we in committee chairs, will get a certain amount of dollar to spend based on this forecast. But we've only got the forecast. It's not old enough for folks to have sorted through in the House and the Senate and the governor to agree on what the forecast would be. So for example, I chair a finance committee, agriculture, natural resources, pollution control agency, natural resources and the environment. And I don't know what my target's going to be yet. So I can't do a budget. I can do all the work leading up to it, but we're not quite ready to do a budget. It has to be done by the 19th of April. We're on track, but yes.
I have a question. What about seafood?
We don't know the numbers yet for any of the budgets yet, no matter which budget it is.
I thought it was supposed to be a bill like this, how you control this.
Do you want to just wait
Well,
here? I've given the big picture. And we're going to now listen to we'll talk about some of your specific concerns, and I want you to ask questions as we go, because I do think it's better when we have a conversation.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate that you're here and giving us your time, your Sunday afternoon, part of your Sunday afternoon to come and just hear what's happening at the legislature. It's very important. This time is very critical. Jean just said that we're shaping kind of our budget right now, so the House will have some requests, the Senate will have some priorities, the governor already put the budget, and now these three things are going to come together. I serve in 3 committees, actually 4. I chair the Education Policy Committee. This is my first time chairing, and I'm just delighted to really have this amazing opportunity in the Senate. It's really amazing that in my 7th year, I get to chair education, and partially it's because a lot of our senators retire, so my class, who was elected in 2006, had this great opportunity to really start chairing committees. And then I also serve in the Education Finance Committee. I serve in the Higher Education Workforce Committee and State and Local Government. So it's incredibly fast-paced. A lot of work that we're doing right now, as I said, is really trying to bring these 3 things together. I have a handout. Part of what I wanted to let you know as constituents of ours is that this is my first time. Jean has been a chair before, but it's amazing how when you become a chair, that issue that you're responsible for as a chair really consumes a lot of your time and your energy. And I enjoy that. I think it's a great opportunity. Yet there's a lot of issues that you are interested in and care about that sometimes we just have to, take more time to get to, just because we have this amazing responsibility. So I am right now working on a bill for the coalition of about 29 organizations that are pursuing the Homeowners Bill of Rights. It has been one of the most challenging things I've done. Being the chair of education has been difficult, but I was offered this opportunity by Senator Ann Rest, who has authored this bill before, and she said, it's just 3 simple things. We're eliminating dual tracking so that people don't have to, that now you have the right to negotiate your mortgage, renegotiate your mortgage if you, have a problem paying your mortgage. And it just so happened that the banks pursue 2 venues at the same time. They are negotiating with you, but they are pursuing foreclosure at the same time. And many times the foreclosure process goes faster than the negotiation. So you think that you're good foreclosure when you're going to lose your home?
I know, my brother's on
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate thing. So many people have lost their homes because they think that they are negotiating and they can. Then that bill also introduced a single point of contact so that you will know, your bank, when you get a mortgage, you go to the bank, you purchase a home, they loan the money to you, and then they sell that mortgage multiple times, and you don't know. And they are supposed now to track it, and this bill is supposed to it has a provision that tells, the person what is going on with your mortgage so that you know what to do. And the third part is a mediation piece that is very important that we don't have in Minnesota. We have a lot of counseling, but we don't have mediation. It has been incredibly difficult to move that forward. But I have a handout that we developed in the office to talk about the, if you could help Jim, Mr. I think this is a very simple handout that it just basically explains the process for the governor's proposal. And it just tells you what the governor's proposal incorporates, and then it tells you what his proposal is in order to get it. So there are 2 pieces to this proposal. One is that he asked for a significant amount of money to do property tax relief, to increase LGA, to pay for education, higher education, and then he proposes 5 different sources to increase that revenue. One is income, the other one is the sales tax. He recently announced that that's not going to be part of his proposal. Then the corporate, eliminating some corporate loopholes that will generate some money, but we don't know what that is. And then the tobacco tax.
Taxes on to create that 4th tier, that's correct?
That's one of the proposals, so
Yeah. Do we have another handout?
Oh, here.
So the tax proposal will reduce $2 billion. That's the problem now for the governor.
He's losing that
Yeah.
because of the sales tax.
That is correct.
He's losing it, is that?
He has decided not to incorporate the sales tax, and the estimation for the sales tax, what he was going to raise, was $2 billion. So his budget, the budget that he proposed is $37 billion. So now he has to go to 35 because he doesn't have $2 billion out the sales tax. So it's very problematic because all of these things that we have been talking about.
But they were talking in the start to bill about making that up by raising income tax. So does that mean he's going, and I'm all for it, raise the freaking, go back to 90. He's already got an income tax increase in the budget as it's written, so now is he going to be making additional,
I would guess.
make the rate to whatever percent higher?
No, I think what your way to look at this is one of the things he was doing is trying to make the tax system more fair by what he was doing, lowering the sales tax, and that was a fairness proposal, and he was going to use that money for a rebate on property taxes. What I think this means is that rebate is off the table, because, and frankly, for our district, the rebate was not as important because it's relatively small compared to the impact it would have in outstate Minnesota, where that rebate was so big compared to their taxes, some people wouldn't even get the whole thing.
Are you saying that the economy is not improved?
No, no. The economy is getting better, and Minnesota's economy is getting better, but the governor's proposal to make the tax system more fair in this way that he had proposed, my guess he's going to come in and have some other ways to make it more fair. And one of those ways, I mean, there are other things for property tax that have been developed when we were in the majority before, but plenty wouldn't go along with. There's some great property tax proposals that would be great for my district, for your district, would be good for Minneapolis. So I think you may see some of those coming. And they are, it's another way to get at the fairness issue. So I suspect we'll see that. Yes?
I'm glad to hear about the dropping of the property tax. To me, that seems to be a real silly thing to do. You go through the whole process of collecting that money, and then you're going to go through another process with the paperwork and the effort to give it back again, and you're just going to collect some more after that. You have to do something. Reduce the future. Don't pay back the past.
Don't pay back
I would
next year,
almost
too.
put money on the fact that it's going to be off the table, that part is off the table.
And we get taxed on it the following year, correct? So it's kind of the smoke deal, whatever.
There's a question here first, then we'll go back.
Okay, sure. The question I have is about sales tax. It seems like sales tax is a pretty good idea to me. It's simple compared to income taxes and other forms of taxation. What made the governor drop the tax? What kind of pressures did he have, and what do you two think about that? And were you for more sales tax? Because I think sales tax is great. It taxes everybody, including the money that's running around in our economy that's been earned illegally, like for drugs or anything. If you go buy a new car because you got selling drugs, you're getting taxed on it, you know. So it's a great way to get more income. So I think it's easy and it's a great way. So what do you guys think about that, and why did it go away?
You know, the sales tax is a quite complicated tax, and I think that the most controversial piece was the service sales tax. And for instance, in our district, I had so many people who are independent contractors, who are accountants, who are engineers, who are designers, and they actually make very little money. You know, their income is $40,000, $50,000 a year. This is their job, and they have to pay insurance. You know, they pay, everything is private for them because they're not associated with any company. So their net income is actually a lot smaller than, you know, $40,000, $50,000. So they have a lot of clients, customers, like an accountant that will, you know, they will do taxes for a person and they charge $200. And then they have to charge more, and they have to do independent filing for every single one. So for them, it's a lot of paperwork to track, number one. And number two is really a tax that could be considerable. You know, I argue, I don't know, you know, how considerable it would be, because it probably would be, you know, $5, $10 probably addition to that customer. So it's not, I didn't think that was too big, but I think on the aggregate for a person that, you know, works with 100 and 150 people to have to do all of that paperwork to get, you know, that $150 is just too much work. And so people were very upset about that. Then there were some issues about, you know, impacted by that. And I think the governor heard that message from, you know, really thousands and thousands of people. So I don't know if this completely go away as an idea, but for now I think he needs more time to really see how he can group these different.
Well, he's finding out how his idea impacted his constituents.
Exactly.
And that takes time.
It takes time. It takes time. And, you know, cities, for instance, will have to tax, services like, you know, garbage collection and all kinds of things, and that became very problematic for the county and the cities. And so there's a lot of issues that became quite problematic for the governor, and I think that's why he decided to give it more time. And I don't know if he will come back.
We're going to take turns.
Oh, I kind of lost my train of thought because I'm a remodeling contractor, so that particular issue would have affected me, and I do see where it comes from. I do a lot of high-end work, and I make very little money myself because it's just the way it works. But no, the fact that the governor's tax proposal didn't succeed, you guys didn't propose it. It's his tax proposal. He took it off the table because it didn't make sense. But what does the DFL think about that? What are you doing about it? Like, especially this property tax rebate. I live in Minneapolis. Haven't we had trouble in the past with getting rebates that really have no value to us in the present, but hurt us in the future? So what does the DFL want to do? Do we actually want to give rebates back to people, or can we address this in a different way?
I think it's going to be addressed in a different way of keeping your property taxes down rather than letting them increase will be the thrust of what we do.
Right there. Oops. Yeah, it might be. Turn it up.
So now I got distracted.
Yeah.
I think the thrust will be trying to keep from shifting responsibilities to the property taxes. That's where we will make, that's what I think we're going to be doing, so your costs for the cities won't go up and they won't raise property taxes. We'll go back more to the state paying for things that the state has traditionally paid for.
Right.
Now, just because Governor Dayton put one grouping of things off the table does not mean he did not put other things off the table. So I think just what is off the table right now is this business, the sales tax increase, the reducing of the whole sales tax, and the property tax refund. But lots of other things are still on the table because I think we all agree that we need more money for education. So the DFL, I think, is committed to that. Education from little kids all the way up from university. So I think those things we're committed to do. So we will have to raise income, because remember I said we have a $627 million shortfall coming up, plus this $801 million debt to the schools.
Right,
So
underfunding of schools. So,
right. So we've got to erase at least the 627 and all or part of the debt to the schools, and then move forward. So that means we have to raise real money.
are there any proposals? I've heard just one or two little things about it. So I'm maybe underrepresented here in my age bracket, but I've got a 4 and a 6-year-old son. I'm concerned about Minnesota having good schools, our roads. I'm not afraid of paying more taxes. My property taxes are fine by my estimation. In fact, maybe our roads and parks and schools need to be funded better.
Right.
But I think one of the big concerns is that they kind of look at this as an across-the-board property tax relief, when ultimately I'm not the one who needs the property tax relief, but if you're on a fixed income, I'm not the constituent that needs your property tax relief, but there may be people that do. And can we address their needs as a separate entity from my needs, because they're different? So is there legislation to try and address that?
I think that's the kind of thing you're going to see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
Good.
the governor, both the governor, the House, and the Senate will have different proposals of how to, go at it. And part of what we are looking at right now, I think both in the Senate and the House, is to really figure out how to review property taxes for the short term and the long term, kind of in line with what you were saying. Not all people, some people have incomes and homes that they can afford to pay more taxes. Some people less. Some people have a house that is more expensive that they can't afford and they live in a fixed income. So we have all kinds of individuals. The governor's proposal is really incorporates $400 million additional dollars. I have a handout on education as well that explain how that distribution will be made for education. And I think he's looking at three very important aspects of education, but he's really focusing on very young kids, and also what we do with graduation and prepare our kids to go to college. So there is a lot of funding dedicated to strengthening the high school experience, preparing kids. We have low graduation rates among children of color in this state.
Yeah, our achievement gap
It's
is
very,
awful.
it's tragic. And so the governor is very determined to make a difference. And for the first time in the history of Minnesota, the Commissioner of Education and the Chancellor of Men's-Q and President of the University of Minnesota and the Director of Higher Education, Larry Povemiller, have formed a formal group through which they are going to really look at how they need to connect the high school work with higher education, with post-secondary experiences. So you're going to be seeing a lot of new programs, new ideas to do vocational training. Greater Minnesota did a lot of that in the past, and we need people with technical degrees. There's a lot of jobs out there that we just really don't have people trained to do. And so we're going to try to enforce that message, you know, that having a vocational career, a 2-year career, a technical career is a good thing in Minnesota, that we need professionals there. You know, they make between $50,000 to $80,000, and these are jobs that are available right now, as well as really continuing to push people to pursue college and you know, other careers. So that's going to start at 9th grade and begin the connection with higher education as you approach high school and begin to talk not only about obtaining your high school diploma and graduating, but also obtaining a technical diploma, a technical career, and pursuing education after 12th grade.
Great.
I think he's right here. He's Hal and then you, so we're taking turns.
Do both of you support the marriage equality bill? Yes. Okay. Do you support the Senate or the House version of the health exchange? The Senate, I hope you say the Senate.
The Senate is very good.
But is the Senate the one where the abortion language came out of?
The House.
The House.
The House.
So the House is bad all the way around. Because the House bill wants the board stacked with insurance people, right? Isn't that what they're trying to
We
do?
addressed this last time. You have to have at least one of them on there.
So, what you're seeing now is,
I do have another question.
okay, what you're seeing now are two bills that have gone to conference committee, and neither one of them are going to come out as the Senate bill or the House bill. We were in a rush to get it to conference so that those conversations can happen. It's not going to look like the House, it's not going to look like the Senate, it's going to come in.
With or without coverage.
So
are they just grandstanding then, basically? Is that?
I am just telling you how these things work. I'm not affiliated with it.
You didn't put it in there yourself? Is that what
I did
you're
not put
telling
it
us?
in myself, and I did not vote for it. But I think you have to, just to understand the process here of what the Minnesota citizens elected a certain group of people, and that's what happens. You had a second question.
Well, just that Target took all that money from Brooklyn Park and they're just, how come Target can take money from Brooklyn Park and then just renege on their agreement? Isn't there some legal ramification for doing that? They took all that money from Brooklyn Park to build a corporate campus in Brooklyn Park. Doesn't sound like either one of you are familiar with. And they promised like a $1,500, $50,000 per year and above jobs. And now they're just going to move people from Minneapolis up there. So they took millions of dollars from Brooklyn Park, and so they can just do that, like Delta Airlines, they can get away with that stuff. Well, they haven't planned because they do. Well, like Delta did the same thing.
That's a city
They took all that, yeah.
We didn't, they certainly didn't negotiate.
No,
I think Hal has the next question and one here.
I am passing this, I just wanted to let you know, I also brought a handout about the exchange. You know, these issues are so complex and we're just having to do this incredibly fast. So what I tried to do is capture the essence of some of the things that we're doing, the budget, you know, so you have kind of a few things that we're trying to move forward, where the money comes from. The exchange, the same thing, what it is, what it does, and you know, what you should expect. So that's in this handout if you want to review it as well.
If I could just interject on the healthcare exchange. The Republicans had 140-some amendments And I had the privilege of being over to watch from 99 down to 93, and that was a half a day. Listening to the amendments being offered for this bill by the Republican. And I just want to thank both Jean, but particularly Patricia, who sat on the healthcare committee in the Senate, for what she had to endure and go through and stand firm. You know, and you've earned my undying admiration, both of you, for standing firm.
11 and a half hours in the
It was
Senate.
above your pay, it was above my pay grade to sit there and listen for 6 hours.
97 amendments.
Let's just talk about this just for a second. What you're seeing with all, 99 amendments are crazy, right? To any bill, it doesn't make a whit of sense. We had the first bill out of the House had 100 and some amendments, and we were there till 2 or 3 in the morning. But this is the Republican strategy right now, is kind of what I call the gum up the works strategy, trying to slow everything down so we don't get our work done. So that's the strategy, and that is what we are having to deal with in our committees, so things don't slow down, so that things don't get done. I can just tell you, just to show you the slowdown, the governor proposed probably the best agriculture bill, finance bill that's been done in a long time. If the Republicans had proposed that bill, they would have been cheering about it, right? Okay, it's good. More money, it's just a good bill. So it gets into the, in the House, it goes first, there was a policy piece in it, so it went to the agriculture committee, policy committee, and to talk about this policy piece. There was no discussion about the policy piece. It was all about the money. And in the end, it was laid on the table, which was nuts, just nuts. Now, it will shake out and come to my committee and we'll work it out. But it's that slowing things down by moving to adjourn, but roll call vote on that. Moving to table, roll call on that. I mean, that's what we're going through. And so we're not doing the people's business, we're game playing. And that is not good. So I think the next question is right over here.
Could I ask for the indulgence to just ask a question before I back out? The health insurance exchange bill, I'm glad to see that the conflict of interest language is still strong on that. No insurance company is on the governing board. But how we pay for it, I'm really concerned that these insurance companies will be making money, they'll be getting customers. I am not understanding why we would take the health impact fee money, which is supposed to go to reducing tobacco use, and pay for that insurance exchange when their customers are going to be government subsidized customers paying premiums. Wouldn't we expect the insurance companies to pay a fee to be listed on the exchange since they're going to make billions of dollars?
Well, that's all going to be worked out in the conference committee, and I'm not
That's
going to
still
predict it
an
right
open
this
issue.
minute. I'm not going to,
You know,
are you going to be on the
I think
conference
that
committee?
some of people, no, not in the
I'm not going
conference
to be on the
committee.
conference committee.
These are the tough decisions that we have to make. It is possible that if we go in a direction where most of you would agree, progressives would agree, we wouldn't have an exchange bill because all of these items are significant. And so we have these industries who are fighting against this so hard. And so sometimes when you look at the overall outcome of this proposal, and then taking money from an account that in reality we shouldn't. You're absolutely correct. They should be paying for that. But the compromises that we have to take sometimes is, look at the big picture. This is moving, it's going to move. Minnesota is doing its own plan. How we pay for it, I agree with you. I think that we could have done better. But, in the overall scheme of change that we're going to see and the process that we follow, I think it's a small price to pay, I think. Now, I don't know, like Jean said, it is possible that, after all of these pieces kind of move forward, these may change, at least partially, but these are tough questions and are tough decisions to make.
But isn't them helping to pay for it part of the cost of doing business? Oh, we saw that they will ever profit.
Well, they will say that will roll back on to their customers, right? So
That's the nature of
this is a
insurance.
bit- I just would not want to try to make a prediction here, because I don't sit on that committee, have not remember all the work that's done in the committee, really. So I don't know the intricacies. So thanks for coming, even if we just sneak out a little. Yours is the next.
Are you saying we've got a tougher economy? Is that what's going on at the Capitol?
I don't think we have a tougher economy. We are actually doing better. More people are employed. There is more income coming in than expected. We're not going to be hit as hard with the sequestration as most states. But the projected growth for the economy as a whole is not very high. There's not a projection of a recession, but the growth rate is not projected to be particularly high. So I think that's, okay, I think back there is the next question. Oh,
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. Back to the health insurance exchange and the abortion prohibition, because I've been following this quite closely, so that the House small businesses will not be able to access abortion coverage if that amendment stays on.
If their employer wants to buy the insurance that doesn't allow the...
Well, no, if they buy through the exchange, now they don't have to buy through the exchange, but they can get a 50% tax credit if they do.
But even on the exchange, not every insurance policy would not allow
No,
abortion.
the amendment
right?
says every insurance policy offered on the exchange has to exclude abortion coverage.
Oh, geez, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very problematic amendment, and it didn't pass in the Senate, so it's not in the Senate version, it's only in the House. Clearly, there are 3 more steps, actually 2 important steps, and that is that we're going to have the conference committee where, both chairs, House and Senate, are going to select the committee members that are going to review this and figure out what stays and what goes. And then don't forget that the governor ultimately is the one who signs these bills. And so if he vetoes that bill because of that provision, it comes back to us and we have to start all over again. Now, in this year, this is a very problematic issue because Jean just explained what is happening. It's absolutely unprecedented in the Senate that we will have a discussion on our first bill for more than 3 or 4 hours. We've never done it. Later on, as we move forward with omnibus bills, we have more discussion. We could end up 10 hours. Well, this was our first one, 11 and a half hours. We lost time for 3 committees that had very important hearings, people who were traveling from all over Minnesota to provide testimony on all kinds of issues, canceled. And so the strategy of the Republican Party this year is really to take our time to engage in this, provide these amendments that they put forward in the Senate were presented in committee and they did not pass. So they knew that these amendments were not going to pass on the floor, but they tried all of them all over again. So 11 and a half hours, canceling committees. And the most problematic part of all of this is that it puts members in very awkward positions because a committee, they already made a decision, that decision was moved forward to the floor and spent a tremendous amount of time just doing this exercise. And every time, we seldom do this in the Senate where they know they don't have the votes, we oppose, everybody stands and say we oppose, and they do a roll call, which takes about 2-3 minutes every single time. So 11 and a half hours in our first bill, and we are going to see a lot of that, and we really hope that you help us expose that so that Minnesotans know what is happening here, because people have a hard time understanding what's going on here. They don't know this process, so anything you can do to help us expose some of that through Facebook, through social media, to really educate our constituents and the public in general about these tactics that really does not allow us to do work on behalf of you, on your behalf.
Does not. The public wants us to work together. They truly do. I hear that. The polls tell us that. The Republicans have got to be seeing some of the same polls. It may be that they had no clue that they were not going to be in the majority in the House. All the pundits said they were going to be in the majority in the House. The pundits said, well, the Senate is likely to go Democrat, but the House will remain in Republican hands. The shock has been great, and some people haven't gotten over the shock yet. Because their expectations were here, and this is what happened. And so some of what you're seeing is just this having not been able to say, we lost the election, haven't got there yet, even though it's been since November. At some point, that's going to hit. And at some point, they're going to say, this strategy is not going to help us get elected 2 years from now. It's going to happen. So it hasn't happened yet.
So my question kind of actually deals with what he said, unless you have something to say. But
We're all on the same page.
yeah, okay. So you can't affect things that really aren't in your committees. You can vote on them, but you're in committees. In your committees, are your committees made up of a mix of both Republicans and Democrats? Yes. And are you personally reaching across and trying to soothe their hurt feelings and having them understand that just the same as I as a progressive have to deal with the fact that I have conservative uncles and cousins that I don't agree with, they have to deal with the fact that they have gay cousins and uncles and whatever that they have to deal with, and all of the same things. We have to live together. We have to get along together. So are you two helping them have their little hurt feelings soothed so that they can move forward with you? Or
I asked one of my Republican colleagues who was going to be my counterpart in December to go out for coffee. Now, this afternoon.
Well, the coffee itself wasn't that great. I gotcha.
Okay, so this afternoon, I actually will be calling him. I sent an email to him yesterday and said, this is an amendment I'm going to propose to my own bill. And I wanted to talk to him, and I will call him tonight. This is the bill for Tuesday. I don't know what the upshot is, but yes, the answer to your question is yes.
We're definitely more correct more often. I get that, but we're not always correct either, nor are they. And in governance, it's easy for us to sit in here and say they do everything this way to obstruct things, but we play some of the same political games when we're the underdog. And you two both seem like very reasonable people, and I'm just hoping that you are making efforts to make them feel better and understand that you're going to work with them.
One thing that we know, even when we represent districts that are so Democrat, is that the success of a chair depends on our ability to bring people together.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you get votes time and time again, and bills time and time again, when you're not able to really get consensus and bring more Republicans, it really speaks to your inability to get to a place where you can compromise. We do a lot of that in committee, and the assumption is that by the time we get to the floor, we've done, because we have 9-10 people depending on members, the differences are so fundamental in education, for instance.
Yeah.
They do not believe that we can correct the problems that we have in public education. They believe that the only way we can fix the system is by investing in private education. That we need to create an economy of competition. And there is no way to reason with any of the proposals because the fundamental premise behind their view of how to correct it is based based on that belief, that we don't have enough competition, that we don't have enough public funding going to private education, that we are not, investing in private education enough. And so you can go on and on, talking about all sorts of proposals, and you just can't.
So does it translate, do you see any direct translation between your reaching out to them in committee and then them following through on the floor, or do they not follow through on the floor?
On the floor, they bring up the same amendments they brought up.
Olive Branch helping at all?
Well, let me give you one more story, just to show you how this, because it didn't happen to me, but a freshman legislator was a Democrat. Came up to me in just, one of those, I'm not believing what's happening, needed to talk to somebody, and I was the person. Said, Peggy Scott, Republican, is arguing that there should be formaldehyde in children's toys. How can she do that?
That bolsters the healthcare system.
Huh?
It bolsters the healthcare system. You don't want sick children.
What was her line? What was the reason for that?
Well, he couldn't get it. I mean, this was a legislator who just simply was astounded, couldn't get it. I don't get it. You can't explain it because there's no explanation other than the business community does not like any regulations. Therefore, one of the things you'll watch for this week coming up, I don't know if you saw it in the paper, but the University of Minnesota, some really good scientists that we gave your lottery dollars to, discovered that triclosan, which is in soft soap, a lot of soft soap, not all of them, and in some laundry detergent and other products, goes through the wastewater treatment system, and if that wastewater treatment system has chlorine in it, then that triclosan in the water has 4 breakdown products that are all dioxins. Dioxins are terrible. So nobody had discovered it before.
So chlorine breaks.
It's association
like
with chlorine
chemical
that
reaction.
makes it do that. That's the first in the nation. Most of the argument about triclosan is, well, is it antibacterial? Our health department says no, it's not. It's just, something in our product. But it's going to be interesting this week because in the House and the Senate there are bills to ban triclosan in a certain group of products that will end up in our wastewater treatment systems and go down in Lake Pepin and elsewhere and end up as dioxin. And it's going to be interesting to hear the arguments for not doing it. That's how far apart we are. And so when she says we're far apart, I just want to tell you, it's everywhere.
That's just education. That's true. Yeah, please.
There was one question on that topic that she was going to ask.
If I can follow up on my question then. So what are the American citizens supposed to do? Are we supposed to wait another 4 years until the Republicans and the Tea Partiers decide they need a Latino vote to maybe win the presidential election before we finally get some cooperation and compromise? Can this country afford to wait 4 more years for compromise and negotiation?
To wait 4 more years.
Right. So, part of the issue about our rules of democracy is that we have rules that in place that allow us to work in a democratic way, and we can't change those rules because one party is acting one way or the other, and that's the difficulty. I asked this question actually recently about the rules on the floor, about limiting time. And so we caucus about this because obviously we have a problem right now, right? Our time is being consumed by these tactics. So how do we get to the business of doing the work that we need to do? Could we limit time? Well, do I want to be limited on my time when it's my turn? No, I don't want to be limited. So that's really the complicated piece about, how do you open a forum for discussion and debate that is truly democratic?
How do you open a forum for discussion and debate when you have one party that doesn't want it?
Right. So how these parties, and you see it in Washington as well, you see it in Washington, you see it here, how they abuse that, that rule of democracy, that protocol that we put in place to function as a democratic society. That's what we see right now. when they don't have the power and they're using these rules of a democratic society to impose, kind of the social agenda.
Well, I guess that was the crux of my
But it's a
question.
very complicated
Construction is
issue.
because
It is.
Well,
Go back to, just let's go back to what Patricia said originally. These are firmly held beliefs by Tea Partiers. They are citizens and they do believe in democracy. They just have different beliefs than we do. And they are fundamentally different. So that's one of the issues here. Jim wants to.
I just wanted to say that Jim Abler, a Republican, stood up against his party and voted for all these changes. So not all Republicans are evil. Jim Abler is getting abused every day on conservative talk radio for doing the right thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Really tough to be brave these days.
Doesn't the fix for this start socially and then end up being political? I mean, don't we as the citizenry decide to engage in each other, in debate with each other, civil conversation with each other, and then you guys represent us in that? I mean, I think we're asking you to fix our problem, in essence.
It's a microcosm of what's happening at the national level.
Yeah.
It is.
And so we're not going to be able to solve that. And there's other issues that we need to talk about. But before we do, I have to pull the chair of the Forum Committee's prerogative into a commercial. Next Saturday, the 16th, the district is hosting a spaghetti dinner and silent auction. And it's over at the Bethel Evangelical Lutheran Church, which is right on 42nd, in between Bloomington and Cedar, big parking lot faces 42nd Street. And that's from 5 to 7 p.m. next Saturday. And that's a chance to come and vent with other of our legislators. Hampton County Commissioner will be there. The state DFL chairman is going to be there. And it's just really a good time to get and check the chance to go and meet and talk with other progressives. So that's next Saturday, the 16th of, it's actually St. Earl's Day. St. Earl's Day? Yes, he chased some vermin out of Finland.
And it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's an inexpensive dinner. Kids love it. Spaghetti is wonderful. It's cooked by volunteers that care very deeply about the issues that you're talking about. My kids, love to come and eat, and it's, the money that you provide, it goes to the district, so it's a good night out.
Yes, we're not blessed with deep pockets like the Koch brothers. And Gene Wagenius has the second Saturday of every month between September and May at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, the second Saturday of the month, at Mayflower Church, which is on Diamond Lake Road and just off of 35W, across the street from the Russian Museum of Art. So again, it's a good chance to come and talk to Gene and find out more in detail about what's going on and how we can help. Just asking them questions, tough questions. And Patricia Torres Ray has an open house on March 18th. It's a very important date. From 11 to 1 o'clock at the State Capitol, 309 State Capitol Building. That's her office. Having an open house. If you want to RSVP, there's information over here on this as well. So there's some fun things coming up. And then we are going to pass a free will bucket to help us defer costs for not only this forum but future forums. So if you would be as kind to do what you can do, if you can do it, fine. Otherwise, we want you to make sure to spread the word about forums, and we'll put them out on our website, which is SD63 DFL.org. That's a good place to get a lot of information about what's going on about our party here at 63, which is a very strong party. It's because of folks like you that show up for things that make us strong. So, thank you all. That's the end of the big commercials. I think, right?
We should mention that the Minneapolis DFL is having precinct caucuses on April 16th. Locations vary by ward, so check the Minneapolis website. It's mpls.dfl.org. And check for when your individual ward conventions are. The ward conventions start on April 27th, and then run for something like the next 4 weeks. And so different wards go on different days. And the city convention is June 15th. So if you're interested in being a delegate to the city convention, be aware of that. Minneapolis is going to be electing mayor, the city council, park board, board of investment and taxation. Since we have people from St. Paul, just make sure you understand that you've got the same date for the caucuses. In fact, that's kind of why Minneapolis chose April 16th, was to make it easier for people to remember. St. Paul went first. So your caucuses also are April 16th, and I assume that the St. Paul DFL has the information posted somewhere. Sorry for the vagueness, but that's kind of why I know about that. I think that's everything.
So now we're going to return to our live programming. We're under constraints to get out of here by 4 o'clock. So we'll try to wrap it up around between 3:30 and 20 to 4. Eric, is there anything you want to say?
Yes, continuing the conversation that was going on before the commercial was about upset in the back row about how obstreperous the Republican Party is being. And that is the reason that I am currently involved in politics, because, well, they don't play fair. They don't play at all. And I am interested in continuing the conversation about how those of us on this side of the podium, whatever, can be involved in either exposing their irresponsibility or having conversations with them, picking off the more reasonable people that exist in that party to actually play the game as it is designed. I'm interested in talking to at least these two gentlemen about what can we do here to address that issue. That is what burns my blood. So,
thank you for doing that. I think Gene said something incredibly important, which is that the overwhelming majority of people in Minnesota are pretty reasonable people. They have their own convictions, no question about it. They have their political affiliations and their faith, whatever motivates them to do what they do. But overall, people want us to work together, and they want us to work out differently. Time and time again, all of the polls indicate that people want us to work together and to come to consensus and figure out how we move reasonable policies forward to pay for education, for infrastructure, to protect our environment. We are very proud of Minnesota. People know that this is a state where we have indicators of well-being that are pretty high. We're first in the nation in almost every indicator, have been for a number of years, and people want to do that. Absolutely. The question is, how do we go about the business of doing this, and unfortunately how polarizing the nation right now is, and how our political divide is just greater and greater as we move forward. It's very complicated.
Can we give you a positive?
Yeah. Let's do that. It's springtime almost.
Yes, the day is getting warmer.
Yes. It's a sign.
Last year in the legislature, in the last 2 years in the House, agencies were told by the Republicans they could not talk about climate change, could not talk about it. And the Republicans took some recommendations for the spending of your lottery dollars that mentioned the word climate change and took the money and killed them. This year, at the beginning of the session, I have the Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture budget. And at the beginning of the session, I asked John Foley of the Institute of the Environment if he could help me organize some science for the beginning of the session. So we had 5 science days, and literally it was all science. I have a bent towards science. I think science can help us a lot in good decision making. The first day, he organized, and one of the people he brought 5 scientists. He actually had the flu that day, but 5 scientists came from the University of Minnesota, top drawer scientists. One of them was Mark Seeley. Do you hear Mark Seeley on the radio a lot? And
Mark Seeley talked about climate change. And what was interesting to me is he got very little pushback from the Republicans. He did science, put it up on the board, and they asked him, is this really real? Absolutely. And I haven't heard an anti-climate change comment since then. I think perhaps the public understands it, and the Republicans are now reflecting that the public understands that we are having to deal with it. One of the reasons I think Mark was so successful is he just talked about this, and I had asked John Foley about this. I want you to talk about what's going to happen very specifically in Minnesota. And he talked about big storm events, a lot more flooding, because of big storm events, we don't have the capacity to handle it. And then he talked about the drought that we're in. And a lot of the people on our committee are farmers or represent farm areas. And what he said, and it still holds true, is that in Minnesota, they are testing the lowest soil moisture rates ever tested. And it's not good news. When I talked to the Department of Agriculture people about it, they said yes, and we are testing zero in southern Minnesota, zero soil moisture. So the reality of this, I think, is beginning to have an impact. And this is our opportunity now to move forward on some of the things that absolutely we need to do for our children, our grandchildren. So some things, science does help.
Education helps. Science helps, absolutely.
Yes.
Two comments. I work in photosynthesis at the university, and if I take a CO2 meter, when I came to Minnesota, the CO2 in the air was around 340 parts per million. Now it's 388, just in the time that I've been here. So it's going up. To stick your head in the sand and say it's not going up, it's just ridiculous. So as a scientist, we're constantly just banging our head against the wall because we don't understand why people don't get this.
Do we have an explanation for that now, though, right? That somebody said the bike riders are doing that.
That's bike riders.
So they breathe more, so they're putting more CO2 in the air.
The other question, as far as obstructionism, one route would be that you could say that you will get your business done. And you will take as long as you need to get your business done. And it's taking a long time now because there's nearly 100 amendments. And we might have to extend the legislative session, and it's going to cost this much extra money because of what's happening now. And have someone like the governor go out and mention, I think people will realize when there's 96 amendments, it's pretty obvious that's what's going on. And start calling them out on it, and let them get political pressure at home, because their incentive for doing this is clearly so that you can't get through your business by the end of the legislative session. So if you disincentivize that and say, we're going to get through this, there's two reasons why they should move things along quicker. Political reason and the fact that you're going to do it no matter what. Anyway.
Sounds like a letter to the editor to me.
How about a hug?
Interesting. We had a conversation, we exchanged, 10 p.m. We were just so sick of amendments that I made exactly that comment to our majority leader. These are our rules. We put deadlines for committees and everything. We can change that whenever we want to, right? So we will, if we need to. So people are talking about exactly what you just said, because ultimately our job is to get business done. We have to pass these bills. We have to accomplish what we have to accomplish. And if we need more time, well, we need more time. We can make that determination. Yes, if we extend the time of the legislative session, that costs people money, and I think people need to understand. That's why, again, I'm asking you to please, expose this. Let people know. People don't know that we spent, 11 hours in the Senate and 12 and a half hours in the House. I know that. But most people, you do know that, but most people don't know that we spent collectively about 22 hours. We were waiting for it.
But my only issue with the use of the word expose, and I don't know everyone kind of feels this way, but people my age, when I try and talk to them about politics, and I come from a relatively political family, and I like to talk about this stuff, if we're perceived as attacking them, then we're teaching younger people who are just fed up with politics, don't want to have anything to do with it, then we're teaching them, or we're telling them that they should stay away. They're getting put off by that kind of language. So I would say let's just make it known that these things are happening in a very, in the nicest way possible. But yes, this is our life too. This is our tax money. This is important for us to get involved.
One of the things that has been shown that people can be disgusted with politics, people don't show up to vote.
That's right.
And that is a strategy for trying to get you not to vote.
Yeah, nearly as effective as voter IDs, which we, didn't let them pass in Minnesota, which is great.
No, I said we're going to say that in terms of delaying stuff, isn't March the 31st pretty firm with the health exchange question? So that one can't be delayed.
Absolutely. We had a deadline and we had to do it. That's why we have to stay for as long as it took. And we have to stay. This is number one priority.
Yeah.
You say you have all these negatives, and then last time when the Republican people were answering, they just block you out and didn't listen to you, or you're in the same way. And another thing is you do not let the press come into the committee meetings. Why not invite them in?
Oh, we invite them in. I specifically invite them in. They are invited in. There's just not enough press people to cover everything that's going on. They usually hear something wild that happens, like the governor's finance bill for agriculture being laid on the table. And then they go back and listen to the tape and report on it. But they are welcome in committee. And I've had, particularly our science hearings, because it's the beginning of the session and the press didn't have anything else to do, he did some good coverage.
And unfortunately, they covered only things that are incredibly controversial.
Mm-hmm.
And that's problematic because what you just said, they only come when we're totally divided and we can't find, because it's entertaining to see us, not building consensus and having differences of opinion. And media is looking for that opportunity, so they don't really come to every hearing where we do great things together.
Sure.
And so they show when we have differences, when we cannot come to consensus, and very controversial people who are very polarizing coming to testify. They love to show that, so it's very unfortunate.
Well, two things. Number one, is there any acknowledgement on the Republicans' part that not only they lose the election, but people don't like or they just, because I keep hearing that they say they need to re-crack their message. But you don't need to re-crack, you don't need the different words, you need a different ideology. The people are rejecting this all across the country. And then my second statement is, you've almost said that the polls show that we want you to work together, but not like to give the insurance companies control over the health insurance board. We want you to work together, but to do things that help the vast majority of Minnesotans, not in favor of, whatever special interest is trying to sway you to do their bidding.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is, I hope that we are, again, trying to do that. I don't know. Clearly, I think Gene was mentioning that I don't think they realize that they are the minority in the Senate. I always tell members, this is 4 years. I mean, do we really want to act like this and continue to behave and work this way for 4 years? In the House, at least it's just 2, but 4 is a long time.
It's 2 years, and we don't have nearly the margin that they have in the Senate. We only have a few more votes than they do, so it's much more difficult in the House.
This morning, on Melissa Perry's show, I'm assuming that a number of people here watch her on the weekends. She talked about Detroit, where democracy is going to die. You know some things about what's happening in Michigan, where the governor has decided to have people come and run the local city governments where they've had problems. We are losing in this country the opportunity to experience democracy. And when I was getting ready for coming to this meeting, I bumped into this information on the web. It's called The Ideas Behind and Beyond Intractability. And it talks about limiting destructive confrontations and promoting social learning. And this is out of the University of Colorado. There are some people in this country that are onto some things about how to break down this limiting, this destructive confrontation and moving towards social learning, which will eventually take those beliefs and have them questioned. I'm 70 years old, and I've changed my beliefs about a lot of things that I thought was the real truth years and years ago. But because I've, been slammed upside the head by the facts, or my experiences brought me to a place where these certain things don't work anymore. It's not for the betterment of our society to continue to fight among each other. And this and other ways are out there. And who would I talk to in the legislature, either the Senate or the House, that would be interested in something like a truly effective consensus-building process that the state could adopt, perhaps, or it could be just a pilot project on environmental issues, for instance. We've got to do some big things to change all of this whining back and forth and posturing and all of that stuff. It doesn't work. And it's, as you well know, it's pissing everybody off. And it's not helping our economy, it's not helping the spirit of this country, and we just need to do something about it. So who would be interested? I know Ann Winchensky from where I live. I haven't talked with her about this. I'd be glad to speak with anybody about it and try and pursue some action or something that we could do about this. But we're not getting anywhere with these political battles and just going back and raising more money that the Democrats are doing now. They're asking for all kinds of money right after they won, just so that they can keep up with and keep a momentum going. And there's constant, huge money that goes into politics. Can you imagine what we could do with that to help the poor people in this country without spending so many millions of dollars on just getting elected? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
There are some things that various members are doing on some issues. Like there's a caucus, which is bipartisan, on children's obesity. You can take a narrower subject, and I think that's the way we start that. Environmental issues are very hard because you have the big chemical companies, big ag on one side, and they don't want change. So it's, in the environment area, it is big money that is driving a lot of our decision making. But in some of the areas, it's easier to make those compromises. And I think those are the areas that we need to best cover and work on first. But you may have other ideas.
You know, it takes a lot of work, and sometimes it's difficult for our supporters to understand how these work. I decided that I am going to model behavior as the chair in the Education Committee in a different way. I was treated really badly during the last 2 years as a minority. I was never given an opportunity to meet with the chair. I was never given an opportunity to introduce the bill. And I was never given an opportunity to really present in a responsible way an amendment, because we were just shut down completely. So at the beginning, what I decided to do is meet with the Republicans and let them know that I will hear their bills, that I will let them talk, because I will not be treated. I will not treat them the way I was treated during the last 2 years. And that, for me, that has ended. It has been a very interesting experience for me. I just had the opportunity to hear the bullying bill, the Safe Schools Act, last Thursday. And it was remarkable. The House had 39 amendments. They stayed for 7 hours. I only had 2. They came and talked to me about this. It was it was a remarkable hearing. I don't know, I don't want to say, that we are there and trying to do this work that you're describing, but I do believe that when you try to utilize these strategies, they work. But it's not easy. It's not an easy task, because when you give time, I'm dividing my time, so you hear things that, people go like, why are you listening to all of this? Half of your time are listening to nonsense. Why is it you're not letting, other members in the Democrats participate and not giving them enough time? Well, you're sharing time, so you don't get to hear the things that you really want to hear time and time again. You get to hear things that you really don't want to hear. And people get very distressed with that. People come to me and say, why is it you're giving them so much time? Why is it you're treating them this way? Well, I think it's important. So that's one thing. In the Senate, we also have a group of senators who are trying to form this Purple Committee, the Purple Caucus. I don't know what that's going to be. Some people said, don't vote too purple so you don't get, things that, you're a majority for a reason. So they were a majority for a reason, and they got a lot of damage done. So you have to do some of that work. And if you form a Purple Caucus so that you don't get anything done, that's not good. So, it's a tough task, but we really need to, continue to work on it.
I have a question. This last session, there were these two really obnoxious constitutional amendments, and I believe more that the Republicans tried to push more through. And I'm just wondering if there's any interest or any action on raising the bar for what it takes to first of all, put a constitutional amendment before the voters, and/or to raise the bar for the majority of voters who have to approve it.
I think there are bills to do that, right? I don't know. But it would actually take a constitutional amendment to do what you want to do. And I think that putting up a constitutional amendment right now would not be a good idea, for one. And secondly, you never want to put up one unless you have an organization out there that will organize and raise millions of dollars to get it passed. So remember, the Republicans thought it was going to be easy to pass the voter bill. They thought that was a slam dunk when they put it on the Constitution. It might be intuitive that it's a slam dunk to raise the bar. I don't think that's the case. I do not want to see any constitutional amendments going up.
Prior to these last two, when was the last time we had a referendum on a constitutional amendment like that?
Before the last two.
Before the last two, when was the last time we added a
The
constitutional?
3/8 amendment for waters and wildlife.
Dedicating funds for that, and then prior to that, this doesn't happen very often, right?
It doesn't have to happen very often at all. And I hope people have lost their appetite for this kind of thing.
Right.
That brings up something I was going to ask about anyway. Is there any talk going on about trying to do something about limiting the effect of outside groups coming in and influencing the state elections? For example, David Axelrod has already pledged at least double the money he spent in the last election to put to, as he put it, keep his people in line, the Republicans. The Green Marriage Amendment thing, there was some guys in California who was going all across the country, organizing each state by state. Number one, who the hell is he? And number two, why is he here in Minnesota affecting Minnesota politics? And then thirdly, if they're going to spend their money here, why not put a sales tax and all that kind of
So we do have.
But the point is, though, you've got David Axelrod, he's a multi-billionaire state of Minnesota, and with all due respect to our legislature, we're never going to fight him. We don't have the money to fight him. This guy from California is another multi-billionaire. He can't fight over him. And he doesn't care what you think. He knows what he wants. He wants an anti-gay marriage amendment in the state of Minnesota. That's what he's living for.
Well, he is paid very handsomely for that, too. He's the same guy that's run all 31 marriage amendments. The same dude, Schumacher. The same dude that's run. He's a multi-millionaire from oppressing people, by oppressing people.
And he came to the wrong place.
Yeah. But he'll be back.
All this has to do with free speech and the federal constitution, free speech and our constitution, and we're not going to repeal that. We're working on know where money comes from. That, I mean, I am a firm believer that sunshine don't come. And putting sunshine out on what is going on sometimes is all you need to do, because Minnesotans have good instincts if they do something. I don't worry about it. Minnesotans know what's going on. I trust them. It's when they don't know what's going on that I worry.
We just have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance, that came to the question, had a chance to ask one. So if you people have had a chance to voice your opinions or questions, here's your chance.
I didn't comment one, but as I've seen here, I've always seen it, I mentioned, issues that affect low-income people, so what's going on with minimum wage increase right now? What do you guys know about that?
I think it'll happen. I don't know at what level. Yeah, I think so too. I think we're moving forward, with several proposals, I think that have been moving forward from you. I think one, maybe an important proposal that I think people need to know about, because you're here about this, is the proposal that AFSCME is bringing forward about the child care providers union. And it's been a complicated proposal for some of us, because there are a lot of child care providers in these districts who really are not, they really don't understand what's going on, and they have voiced concerns to us about the AFSCME proposal. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on. It's passed the Senate. We had a couple of amendments that were problematic for AFSCME. But clearly what we have right now is a misunderstanding of what the union will do. I think a lot of providers think that they're going to be forced into being part of the union. My hope is that, I ask that they provide more time, that they give us more time to educate the community about this. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And the other piece that I think has become a little problematic is that they've added the PCA to the child care providers, and some of our members are really having problems with that. So in terms of some of the proposals that are coming forward from the different unions, I think that is one that is moving forward with some kind of problem.
Last question. Back to the budget, the taxing the services is off the table perhaps, but it's not going to go away. We know that. It exists in many other states. But I have a question. What was the thinking behind it? Let me ask for an example. If we use a babysitter, if I have our neighbor mow our lawn and I pay them, would those services be taxed, or were there some kind of exclusions that people were thinking about in that proposal?
I think the proposal did not have specific exclusions, so you have to, when you talk about the person that comes to mow the lawn, it depends. If that person, is paying taxes, is declaring that as an income, and declares where that comes from, then you're obligated to do it. It kind of all depends on how the people who will receive that payment actually will declare that as income. Then they would have to provide the source, and then the source is obligated as a. So it's very problematic. I think that's why it came out. But again, I think you said something very important at the beginning, which is I don't believe that it's going to go completely out, because there are some instances, I think, in which we could really talk about increasing some revenues to a tax that is not as problematic. All right?
One last chance for a short question.
How about opening liquor stores on Sunday? Totally different topic.
Well, I'm going to go on this. I am not opposed to that. I don't see the reasons why we don't do it. I think there are, even the industry, some people in the industry are opposed to that. From a regular person point of view, I just don't see the problem. But anyway,
different positions.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. We're very divided. It is. So, Jean may have a...
What's the other side of that?
But I'm not opposed.
The other side of that is, we are charging the tobacco industry for the cost of the damage of tobacco. But we do not do the same thing for the alcohol industry. They do not pay anywhere near the cost of the damage that they cause. They don't pay the cost of the court system, the criminal justice system, of the police officers we have to hire. If we got to the point that if they were paying, I would say fine. But everybody knows that they will, in aggregate, earn more money, and if that's what they want, then I do believe they need to first be willing to pay for the things that you are now subsidizing, because you are subsidizing it big time.
Are you trying to say there'd be more people here if we served wine and beer?
Real quick, does the gas tax cover the cost of roads, or are we subsidizing the roads using our other revenue sources?
It does not cover this cost. Property taxes weigh in big time. There's general fund money and there's bonding money that pays, where your general fund pays off the bonds.
Chairman Garrett has a question or a statement back about our Yahoo sign-up group.
Well, or a question, does everybody know that we have a YouTube channel? We have a YouTube channel. And if you want to know where you're going to see yourself, hopefully tonight, if I'm really, really diligent, it's on our YouTube channel. To get there, go to our website, and it's been sitting there in front of you the whole time, SD63DFL.org. On the left side, there's a link to go to our YouTube channel, and we have a Twitter account. We have a Facebook group. And please do sign up for the Yahoo group. It's what we use for mailing lists, so we'll tell you about everything that's going on tonight. Or if you want to sign up on your way out, we've got a couple of clipboards over here by the door. So I'll add you the manual way. That works just as well. Do we have anybody here who's not registered to vote? Okay, well, if you know somebody who needs to register to vote, we have a bunch of registration forms sitting over there. We came prepared for everything. All right, I'm done.
Good. Well, thank you. And just to wrap things up, I just want to thank Jean and Patricia for being here today on Sunday, and you too. And maybe they might stay for a few minutes if you want to have questions that you're afraid to ask here. But thank you all for coming. Tell your friends, family, co-workers. Undoubtedly we'll have more of these. And we'll have them on our website, and we'll send out words through email and Facebook and all that good social media. It's great having you here. This is the district that elected the governor, just in case you didn't know that. This district is one that made the difference. And this district also keeps good people like Patricia and Jean and Jim Badley, who's on the A side of 63, and John, and all the other people that are running for office, their office, the good people. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.